What the actual fuck? It was what I wanted to say. The scene on the parking lot froze like we were trapped in ice. No one moved. No one spoke for what felt like an eternity. Of course, Ed, the fucking social genius that he was, broke the trance. You two know each other? Like the words hello brother meant nothing. None of the orcs paid him attention. Reaver's apparent younger brother looked like he was trying to choose between rage and shock. What are you doing here? She crossed her arms and raised an eyebrow in judgment of him. What am I doing here? What the hell are you doing here, Lucas? She turned her attention to the two muscly boys behind Lucas. Rife, Taurus, get the hell up, you're embarrassing me. The two that she had named got to their feet awkwardly. They couldn't seem to meet her eye. She shook her head and looked back to Lucas. Well? He spat on the ground. I'm doing business, what the hell's it look like? It looks like you're getting in over your head again. I'm trying to keep the tribe afloat is what I'm doing. The other lean orc spoke up defensively as though he was some sort of audible backup dancer. You'd know what that meant if you hadn't run away. Lucas held up a hand. His mouth snapped shut, but rage was still clear on his face. He was biting back more words. Reaver nodded to him but spoke to Lucas. Who's the mouthy one? Sonya's husband, he explained begrudgingly. The corner of her mouth twitched. Talk to me like that again, she said, locking eyes with the in-law, and I'll rip your fucking tusks off. His jaw clenched. This whole family reunion thing is great and all, but I'm here to get paid, Ed said, raising his voice to bring attention back to the situation at hand. Reaver blinked, glancing over at him. All right, the mission. Even I'd forgotten what we were doing here for a full minute. Apologies. Reaver brushed the front of her jacket as though it had attracted dust. A small family matter. Of course, we can still do business. Lucas was just leaving. She shot him a pointed look. Like hell I was. He took a step forward. We need this score. Reaver's face grew stern. Go home, Lucas. That's an order. You don't get to order us around out of nowhere like nothing happened. For the first time ever, I saw real anger creep into Reaver's expression. She snarled and raised a finger at him. I am still the Bloodhorn, she said simply in a stern voice. Rife and Taurus reached forward to rest their hands on Lucas's shoulder. He shook them off. Lucas turned to Ed, who was growing visibly agitated at the scene before him. 150K. Reaver turned on the human. 160, she said, her voice as cool as ice. This wasn't how it was meant to go down exactly, but Ed rallied fast, realizing that we were somewhat back on track. Me, I was doing my best statue impersonation while trying to formulate plans B, C, D, and E. Reaver must have known that this was going to end badly. It didn't look like her brother was going to take no for an answer. I could see, though they probably couldn't, that she was trying to come up with a way of getting rid of him without things getting out of hand. All while trying to calmly outbid them. Lucas was doing well at keeping his composure, but the in-law behind him was getting increasingly edgy every time Reaver spoke. His hands clenched and unclenched constantly. I slowly brought my own hand down to unclip the strap on my pistol's holster. The troll blood wasn't looking very comfortable either. Before he had just kept an eye on me, now his attention was split across both sides of the conflict. The half-elf driver had moved closer to Ed, probably wanting to keep his employer alive so he could get paid. We didn't have a direct link to Grey, just in case Ed had brought a scanner that could pick up any comms. Fear could pass on any emergencies or last-minute changes to the plan. Well, if this wasn't one of those, Grey was probably having kittens right about now. We were all he had. This was no official mission, there was no backup. Fear had wisely kept quiet through the whole altercation. Sis, I whispered into the helmet as Reaver and Lucas tried to outbid each other. We had no limit as we were technically not going to pay the guy, but she was making it look real. "This is better than daytime TV soaps," Fia replied. "Focus," I chided her. "Are you updating?" It was code for keeping Gray in the loop. "Roger. Glitch reported." I turned my attention back to the ad hoc auction. Shit was getting heated. "As far as I'm concerned, you can sort out your sibling rivalry bullshit on your own time," Ed growled, losing all sense of caution, taking a few steps forward. The troll blood took one big step forward to keep close, and his hand on his right side twitched. "You can't win this, little brother. My pockets go deep," Reva said to Lucas as an aside after her last bid. Reva was managing to keep her cool. It seemed Lucas was not. 200. He sounded pissed. 220. She could play this game all day. "I'm gonna walk out of here with that case and you humbled. 230. She shrugged. 250. 280. He spat. His eyes looked panicked now. Reva picked up on it too. He had hit his limit, or close. Reva grinned. 350. The color drained out of Lucas's face, and Ed looked like he was going to die of joy. I almost felt sorry for the fella. "If you cared at all about this family, you'd let us have this." "Too late," Ed cut in. "She's got the money, she's got the goods." He snapped his fingers, and the half-elf started to move around the car to deliver the case. I looked from Reva to her brother, then around at the other attendants. Despite Ed's final word, tensions were high. We'd won the bid. But something felt off. I could smell it in the air. It was a vibe you couldn't ignore. The calm before the storm. And I just knew. My thought was cut off as the in-law finally snapped. "Fuck this," he swore. "We need this." His hand delved inside his jacket to come out with a goddamn SMG. There it was. Shit. Meet fan at an incredible speed. Everything happened all at once. The troll blood tore open his jacket and extracted a goddamn shotgun. The half-elf seemed to freeze on the spot. Ed dropped for cover. Not finding it, he used the briefcase over his head for what little safety it provided. Both Reva and I activated our Hermes units just as bullets began to fly. The idiot in-law sprayed a wide arc of fire from his SMG. At the rate he was going, he would empty the whole mag before he hit anything important. I moved to the right, circling wide around the group in an effort to get behind them before they realized what I was doing. Reva, like me, had not drawn her weapon, and I figured that she had no interest in harming her kin. She was going wide on the other side, no doubt with a similar plan. My idea got as far as the first few steps, however, when the half-elf driver moved. Not sluggish and slow like everyone else. He began to run towards me. His hands dipped into his jacket and came out with a pair of knives. They were daggers, long and slender with arched and intricate guard assemblies. They looked like antiques. There was no point drawing my pistols. As soon as the bullet left the chamber, it would be flying too slow. He could quite literally see it coming. My hand split in two, and my own blade slid into place. We collided and traded several blows. I moved with all the speed and grace you'd expect from someone who had never been formally trained in swordplay. But I was just fast enough to keep him at bay, and I had reach. I did know enough to know that his daggers were designed for disarming and thrusting. Whilst he couldn't actually disarm me, if he got inside my guard, I could be in trouble. I pushed myself, holding on to the speed to keep myself in the same zone as the half-elf, until his own speed unit wound down. If I turned off before him, I was screwed. Even milliseconds could make a difference. I could feel my body starting to strain itself. His brow creased, and I suspected he was doing the same thing, pushing himself to the very limit. I brought my sword around in a tight arc and then lashed out with a kick. It bought me some time and room to breathe. My breath was so short and pained, my joints burned. Sweat beaded on my forehead. He was barely holding on though. In one last move of desperation, I ripped the gun on my right from its holster. I brought it up level to his chest just as I let real time claim me. My body rocked from the joint force of the temporal whiplash and the kick of the pistol. I fired 6 shots as fast as I could, in a wide group to keep him at bay. He flicked back into real time to the left of where I'd been standing. I fired another 4 rounds. 2 of them found their mark on his shoulder and arm. The impact made him stumble, but he kept coming, his right arm going limp. I dodged to the side, right as he dropped low. Poor choice. He had been aiming for my gut with a thrust. I had twirled my sword in a tight arc and brought it up and across to slash his chest before he dropped low. Instead, I opened his throat and sliced his jaw in 2. I only froze for a moment when I realized what had happened. He had dropped to his knees, in limbo between life and death momentarily, as his mind took in what had actually happened to his body. I'm not a monster. My shot took him through the right temple and he folded like a puppet with its strings cut. My attention turned back to where the rest of the chaos was unfolding on top of this car park. The troll blood was exchanging fire with Rife and Taurus, Lucas and Reva were locked in a fistfight, and the in-law was trying to sneak to where Ed was huddled behind the car. Poor guy, the night really had gotten away from him. Sis? Mission fuck up HQ, what's your emergency? Try and get inside the Forby. What do you think I've been doing? I knew I could count on you. I watched the troll blood shoot a chunk out of the concrete and spray the in-law with shards of cement. He clutched his face, blood streaming between his fingers. Want me to stall them? Fia asked. No, just trace them if they run. First things first though, snag the case, nab Ed. I moved in on Ed, reloading my pistol, about to take aim on the big guy. Either he saw his downed partner or he saw me coming. Either way, he decided to call it quits. He kept up the barrage of fire on the orcs but pulled something from inside his cheap suit, tossing it to the orc gang. Then a second one at me. I managed to make out what it was as it tumbled through the air. Ah, shit. I raised both arms to shield my face instinctively, though with the helmet on it wasn't necessary. There was the clank and metallic sound as it hit the ground at my feet. Smoke burst out in a thick cloud enveloping me. You might think that using tear gas so close to your own proximity was a really dumb decision. You'd be right, unless you're a fucking troll. Troll skin and even their internal flesh like lungs and stomach were naturally immune to many chemical irritants. So while Rife and Taurus were coughing a lung up and tearing, half blood over there, he only had to find Ed and get in the car, then get the fuck out of Dodge. The troll used the cover to press his advantage and unleash a barrage of fire on the 2 big orcs. The cloud was already starting to blow away, shifted by the wind this high up. Reva and Lucas hadn't been close enough, and my attack ops helmet was fitted to deal with this shit. I switched to heat signatures on the helmet's sensors to draw a line on the gas-happy thug. Lots of colours lit my vision, the mottled heat signatures of augmentations, the naturally graded rainbow that was natural flesh, and the fading red to blue that was the car's engines. Everyone was still in motion, Ed and the in-law, the 2 thugs, but I had to take the big guy before anything else. I found the biggest blob of colour near the sedan. My shot took the troll blood in the chest. He flinched from the impact and turned in my direction. Bulletproof vest or just thick-skinned? I didn't know and I didn't care. I raised my aim and loosed 2 more rounds. One passed through his neck, the second took him in the eye. His bulk toppled sideways, the spray of bright white that was his hot blood rapidly cooling as the night air hit it. There was a blur of motion from the colourful figure I attributed to be the in-law. He was running for the Land Cruiser. Good, one less contender. By the time the cloud of tear gas had fully cleared and I could switch back to my regular vision, I was almost at the sedan. My relief at getting a straight run at Ed was short-lived, however. No wonder the in-law had been running. Ed didn't usually have a hole in the back of his head. That I was almost positive about. More importantly, there was no sign of the case. I hit my second burst of speed. The distance from me to the big black 4B was within range. Just. I got halfway there. The headlights flashed to high beams. The helmet automatically cancelled out the flare the same way it would react to a flashbang. It took seconds in my time. The tech in the helm wasn't running at my speed. As the light dimmed, I saw the tip of the SMG peeking out from between the door and the windscreen. I was faster than the bullets, but not by much. Over this distance, I just had time to react. With a spray so wide and varied, I had to stop my advance and drop low. I fell to the ground and watched helplessly as Lucas threw himself into the passenger door as the car tore out of its bay, wheels squealing, a rain of bullets keeping me down. My burst ran out. The back of the vehicle disappeared down the ramp. "Fia?" "I'm in, don't worry, I've got them." I started to run to my bike. "Babe, come on," I called out, glancing in her direction. I expected her to be doing the same, but she'd run the other way, towards the two fallen orcs, Rife and Taurus. I slowed. The panic on her face was all too clear. I looked from my bike back to her. "You've definitely got them tagged?" I asked Fia over the comm. "You betcha." I ran back to Fia. Both the big guys had taken shots caught in the crossfire and a little bit from the troll blood through the smoke. Even before I dropped to my knees, I could see the one on the right wasn't breathing. The holes in his chest and stomach were too many and too deep. The other one, though, he was still alive, breathing sharply, probably still affected by the tear gas. "Rife, come on, big guy." Reva was tearing off strips of cloth from her pants to stop the bleeding. He groaned and squinted at her. "I'm sorry, milady," he mumbled. "Cut that shit out." I looked up from him to the ramp leading down the parking structure. Reva saw me glance away from Rife. Her eyes flickered in that direction, then back to the big fella. "Go," she said simply. "He'll be okay. Just leave me the med packs." I didn't argue. I unclipped the miniaturized med packs on my vest and dropped them to the ground, then legged it to the bikes. "Okay," I spoke to Fia, throwing my leg over the Hellion and turning over the motor. "Which way are they going?" "North. They're exited a few levels down, they've hit the main drag. Off over the overpass now." I tore across the concrete parking lot, building up speed, planning to do something incredibly stupid. My thumb hovered over the firing switch for the large caliber autocannon, and the thought occurred to me that Reva was going to tear me a new one about this particular plan. I fired both barrels. The metal siding that wrapped the top of the parking lot blew apart, leaving a jagged hole just wide enough for a really dumb hunter to attempt a leap of faith. Anyone who knows the slightest thing about gravity will tell you that this is a bad idea. No ramp, no lift. I would start falling damn fast. I just really hoped the overpass was low enough and close enough that I would land before I splat. As my father used to say, it's not the fall that kills you, it's the landing that's a bitch. I left the solidity and safety of the parking lot, sailing out into empty air, resisting the urge to look down. About halfway over, I looked down. The fall of a couple dozen meters. I attempted not to shit myself. When the back wheel met the blacktop, the impact shot straight through the bike and into my spine. Even with the high quality suspension on this thing, it wasn't built for stunt jumping. The bike rocked and I struggled for a moment to keep my balance, as the speed the wheel was going at tried to match the speed that I had been moving, and finally gained traction. There was a bit of a gap in my plan that I hadn't accounted for. The oncoming traffic was not expecting rapidly descending motorcycles. I was lucky I didn't land on someone's roof. Cars swerved into lanes around me as I turned to match the flow of traffic. Horns conveyed protests of the drivers. People pulling past me yelling advice I can only assume was meant as constructive criticism. I crossed a lane, slipped in front of a truck, picked a gap between the two rows of vehicles either side of me, and dropped a gear. "Directions," I called out to Fear over the sound of horns and the general sounds of the traffic. "Keep north, they haven't left the main stretch." I picked up speed, weaving through traffic and trying not to think about the possibility of someone changing lanes without indicating. But this was Perth. Those orange lights were purely for decoration. I kept my eyes peeled and safely made it through the surge in the traffic. At last I spotted what I assumed to be Lucas and his buddy. They were easy to spot, driving erratically, trying to flee the scene and assuming they were being followed. They were right, but it was dumb to drive like you were fleeing the scene. Pro tip, in a city full of black 4x4s, if you want to run away from something and not get caught, merge into traffic and drive normally. Looking like you're running just draws attention. The fact that Fear had them tagged was beside the point. I was smaller, faster, more nimble. It didn't take long for me to gain ground. They were clearly on the lookout for a tail though, and there was two of them, which meant one could drive while the other one leaned out the window, SMG in hand, and opened fire. The number of times I'd been shot at out of the window of a moving vehicle wasn't high, but it was enough for me to know that they were more likely to hit anyone else rather than me. And as satisfying as it would be to unload a couple of rounds into them from the Hellion's twin barrels, I would have blown other cars off the highway. Civilian casualties were not on my list for today. I leant to one side, tucking in behind a road train. Crossing the lane, I pulled ahead, changing lanes again and moving further out, away from them, hiding in the thick of the cars. I moved ahead using the 2 lanes of traffic for cover, trying to get level before planning to move back in. I could make out their car through the windows of the vehicles I was using as cover. There was an open space around them. People who had seen the gunfire choosing to keep clear. Lucas was the passenger. He pulled himself back in, but left the car window down. I considered my options. Move in, blow a tire, force them to stop, try and take them out one at a time with my pistol, try to get in or on top of the vehicle. No, all bad ideas. For my safety and everyone around me, this was not the right place to have a showdown. Lighting up the freeway was the fast track to getting people killed, and there was always the possibility that that person would be me. I could see Lucas looking around trying to figure out where I had gotten to. I couldn't hide out in the side lanes forever. They would eventually find me or lose me, or worse, get trigger happy again. Fear was still on the line, keeping quiet until I needed her. "Are you sure you've got them tagged?" I asked, keeping an eye on the 4B. "Sure as the gods wear sandals." I grunted a reply and slowed, falling back into the shadow of the road train. "They'll keep. Keep an eye on them. Tell me where they turn off or stop." "You gonna confront them?" "Or track them back to whatever they're using as a base. Then Grey can send in a team and sweep them clean." Fear paused. I sighed, knowing exactly what was going through her mind. "I'll call Reva, find out what she thinks is best." "If this is her family," Fear said hesitantly, "she might want to handle it herself." I slowed further, eventually pulling off into a slip lane, coming to a full stop on the side of the highway. "I know, but it's not just about her. This is a military job. We can't let it get personal." "Personal isn't the same as important, right?" It was a favourite saying of our father's. He'd dug it up from somewhere and he used it regularly. Maybe he's right this time. I hung up on Fear and went to put the call through to Reva. I had set my comms to do not disturb during the meeting. I saw I had a missed call from Tobias. Well, that could wait. I selected Reva's name from my contacts. Knowing what little I did about her past and her relationship with her family, this was going to be a tricky subject. If we went about this wrong, Lucas could end up on the wrong side of a Navy prison, or worse, dead. No one wanted that. Reva picked up on the third ring. Where the hell are they? I'm gonna fucking kill the pair of them. Thank you very much for listening to Cyphers Edge. If you enjoy this podcast, a subscription to the channel would be most appreciated. If you'd like more content from me, you can find me on various social media platforms. I also have a Discord. It's a small community, but we'd love to see you there to talk about the genre and any other topics that relate to the podcast, literature, or sci-fi and cyberpunk. As always, the script and narration were done by JJ Brandis, myself, and the music was done by Cale McLeish. Copyright Cyphers Edge 2026.